Listen to me very carefully. I'm about to tell you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you angry. But you need to hear it because your financial future depends on it. Your pension, that thing you've been counting on, that promise your employer made to you, that monthly check you've been dreaming about in retirement, it's not enough. And in many cases, it might not even be there when you need it. Now, before you click away, before you tell yourself that I'm just trying to scare you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Become a member of this channel. Why? Because what I'm about to share with you is information that could save your retirement. And I need to make sure this message gets out to as many people as possible. We're building a community of people who refuse to be victims of a broken system. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get into this. I'm Kevin O'Leary, and I've spent decades in the world of finance and investing. I've built companies. I've made investments. I've seen fortunes made and lost. And I'm telling you right now with absolute certainty that if you're sitting there thinking your pension is going to take care of you in retirement, you are setting yourself up for disaster. This isn't about being pessimistic. This is about being realistic. This is about understanding the cold, hard truth of where we are right now. You want to know what really gets me fired up? It's watching people work their entire lives, 30, 40 years at the same company, believing that they're doing the right thing, they're being responsible, they're being prudent, they're counting on that pension promise. And then what happens? They get to retirement age and suddenly they realize that the math doesn't work. The pension they were promised has been cut. The cost of living has exploded. Medical expenses are through the roof. And that monthly check that was supposed to give them peace of mind, it barely covers their basic expenses. I see this happening all over the country. Good people, hardworking people, people who did everything they were told to do, and they're struggling. They're worried. They're realizing too late that they should have taken control of their own financial future instead of trusting someone else to do it for them. And that makes me furious because it didn't have to be this way. Here's what nobody wants to tell you. The traditional pension system was built for a different era. It was built when people retired at 65 and died at 70. Do the math. That's 5 years of payments. But now, people are living into their 80s and 90s. That's 25, 30 years of payments. The system wasn't designed for this. The numbers don't add up. And guess who's going to pay the price? You are. Companies are looking at their pension obligations and they're terrified. They've got massive liabilities on their books. They've got employees who are going to live longer than anyone expected, and they're trying to figure out how to make the math work. Some of them are going bankrupt. Some of them are cutting benefits. Some of them are freezing pensions entirely. And if you think your pension is safe just because you work for a big company or the government, think again. I want you to understand something about how pensions work. When you're told you're going to get a certain amount per month in retirement, that's based on assumptions. Assumptions about investment returns, assumptions about how long you'll live, assumptions about the company's financial health. And here's the problem. Those assumptions were made years ago, sometimes decades ago, and the world has changed dramatically since then. Interest rates have been at historic lows for years. That means the pension funds aren't earning what they thought they would earn on their investments. Companies are struggling more than they expected. Healthcare costs have exploded beyond anyone's predictions. And all of those factors mean that the promises that were made to you, they're becoming harder and harder to keep. Now, some of you are sitting there thinking, but Kevin, I work for the government. I have a government pension. That's different, right? Wrong. Government pensions are in even worse shape than private pensions in many cases. Why? Because politicians have been making promises for votes without thinking about how they're going to pay for them. They've been kicking the can down the road for decades. And now the bill is coming due. Look at what's happening in states and cities across this country. Pension funds are massively underfunded. They don't have enough money to pay the benefits they've promised. And when that happens, what do you think they do? They cut benefits. They raise the retirement age. They increase employee contributions. They do whatever it takes to make the numbers work. And the people who suffer are the workers who were counting on those promises. But here's what really kills me. Even if your pension is fully funded, even if every promise is kept, even if you get every dollar you were told you'd get, it's still not enough. Why? Because the world has changed. The cost of living is higher than anyone predicted. Healthcare is more expensive. Housing is more expensive. Everything is more expensive. And that pension check that seemed generous when you were planning for retirement 20 years ago, it doesn't go as far as you thought it would. I talk to people all the time who retired thinking they were set. They had their pension, they had their Social Security, they thought they were good to go. And now they're working part-time jobs in their 70s just to make ends meet. They can't afford to do the things they dreamed about doing in retirement. They're stressed. They're worried about money. This is not how retirement is supposed to work. And you know what the worst part is? It's preventable. All of this pain, all of this stress, all of this financial insecurity in retirement, it's completely preventable if you're willing to take action now. But you have to stop trusting other people to take care of your future. You have to stop believing that someone else is going to make sure you're okay. You have to take responsibility for your own financial security. This is why I'm so passionate about this message. I don't want you to be another statistic. I don't want you to be another person who wakes up at 65 years old and realizes that you're in trouble. I want you to understand right now today that your pension is not a plan. It's a piece of a plan. And if it's the only piece you have, you're in danger. Now, I know some of you are getting defensive right now. You're thinking, Kevin doesn't understand my situation. My pension is different. My company is stable. My union negotiated a great deal. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're one of the lucky few who actually will get everything you were promised. But even if that's true, I'm telling you, it's not enough. You need more. You need to build wealth outside of your pension. You need to create multiple streams of income. You need to take control. The people who thrive in retirement, the people who have financial security, the people who can actually enjoy their golden years without worrying about money, they're the ones who didn't rely on just one source of income. They built diversified portfolios. They invested in real estate. They created businesses. They took charge of their financial futures instead of hoping someone else would take care of them. And that's what we're going to talk about in detail, because I'm not just here to scare you. I'm not just here to tell you what's wrong. I'm here to give you solutions. I'm here to show you exactly what you need to do to protect yourself. But first, you need to understand the full scope of the problem. You need to see just how broken this system really is. If you're with me so far, if you're starting to understand that you need to take action, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Leave a comment below and tell me, are you relying on a pension for retirement? What's your backup plan? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Become a member of this community. We're going to get through this together, but I need you engaged. I need you paying attention. Your financial future depends on it. Now let's get into the numbers, because this is where it gets really ugly. This is where you're going to see exactly why I'm so worked up about this. I'm going to show you the math that nobody else wants to show you. I'm going to pull back the curtain and reveal why your pension is setting you up for failure. Let's start with a typical scenario. Say you've worked for a company for 30 years. You've been a good employee. You've put in your time. And your pension is going to pay you $3,000 a month in retirement. On the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year. You think to yourself, I can live on that. I'll be fine. But let's actually break this down. Let's look at what that really means for your lifestyle. First, you've got to understand that this is pre-tax money in most cases. So right off the top, you're losing a chunk to taxes. Depending on your state and your overall income situation, you could be looking at losing 20 to 30% to taxes. So that $3,000 a month just became $2,100 to $2,400 a month in actual spending power. Now let's talk about your expenses. You've got your mortgage or rent. Even if your house is paid off, you've got property taxes, insurance, maintenance. Let's say that's $800 to $1,000 a month minimum. Then you've got utilities, electric, gas, water, internet, phone. That's another $300 to $400 a month easy. Food and groceries, if you're being reasonable, that's another $500 to $600 a month. We're already at $1,800 to $2,000, and we haven't even gotten to healthcare yet. Healthcare. This is the killer. This is the expense that destroys retirement budgets. Even with Medicare, you're looking at supplemental insurance, co-pays, prescriptions, dental, vision. If you're healthy, you might get away with $500 a month. But if you have any chronic conditions, any serious health issues, you could easily be spending $1,000 to $1,500 a month on healthcare. And that number only goes up as you get older. So let's do the math. Basic living expenses, $1,800 to $2,000, healthcare $500 to $1,500. We're now at $2,300 to $3,500 a month just for necessities. Remember, your take home from that pension is only $2,100 to $2,400. You see the problem? you're already in the red. And we haven't talked about car expenses, home repairs, any kind of entertainment or travel, helping out your kids or grandkids, or any emergency expenses. And here's what really gets me. This assumes everything goes according to plan. This assumes your pension actually pays you the full amount you were promised. But what happens when the pension fund is underfunded? What happens when your company declares bankruptcy? What happens when the government has to cut benefits because they can't afford them anymore? Suddenly that $3,000 a month becomes $2,000 or $1,500 or nothing at all. I want you to understand something about pension fund mathematics. These funds are supposed to be invested conservatively to ensure they can meet their obligations. But conservative investments in a low interest rate environment don't generate high returns. For decades, pension funds were assuming they could earn 7 to 8% annually on their investments. But the reality is they've been earning more like 3 to 4%. That shortfall, year after year, compounds into massive underfunding. There are pension funds right now that are only 60 or 70% funded. That means they only have 60 or 70 cents for every dollar they owe. What do you think happens when those funds run out of money? They cut benefits. They have to. There's no magic pot of gold that appears to make up the difference. And if you're depending on one of those pensions, you're going to take a haircut whether you like it or not. Let's talk about inflation, because this is another factor that's absolutely destroying pension values. When you retire and start collecting your pension, in most cases that payment is fixed. It doesn't go up with inflation. Or if it does have a cost of living adjustment, it's usually capped at something minimal like 2 or 3% a year. But what happens when real inflation is running at 5, 6, 7% or higher? Every year your pension buys less and less. A $3,000 monthly payment today might feel adequate. But in 10 years, with even modest inflation, that same $3,000 will have the purchasing power of maybe $2,000 in today's dollars. In 20 years, it could be worth $1,500 in real terms. Your expenses keep going up, but your income stays flat. You're slowly getting squeezed, and there's nothing you can do about it if that pension is all you have. Here's another scenario that people don't think about. What if you're married? What happens to your spouse when you die? Most pensions offer a survivor benefit, but it's usually reduced. Maybe it drops to 50 or 75% of what you were getting. So if you were already struggling to make ends meet on your full pension, how is your spouse going to survive on half of that? This is a crisis waiting to happen, and it happens to widows and widowers every single day. I've seen people who worked their entire lives, who did everything right, and then they pass away and their spouse is left with a pension that's been cut in half. And suddenly, this person who's grieving, who's dealing with the loss of their partner, now has to worry about how they're going to pay their bills. It's devastating. And it's completely avoidable if you plan properly and build wealth outside of the pension system. Now, let me tell you about the people who really get hurt. It's the workers in their 50s who suddenly find out their pension is being frozen or eliminated. They're too young to retire, but they're too old to make up for decades of lost savings opportunity. They thought they were set because they had a pension, so they didn't save as aggressively as they should have, and now they're scrambling, trying to figure out how to build a retirement nest egg in 10 or 15 years when they should have had 30 or 40 years to do it. This is financial malpractice. These people were lied to, not intentionally maybe, but they were given a false sense of security. They were told that if they just showed up, did their job, and stayed with the company, they'd be taken care of, and now they're discovering that promise is worthless. The anger and betrayal these people feel is absolutely justified, but anger doesn't pay the bills. Action does. Let me give you some real numbers about pension underfunding. There are major pension systems in this country that are tens of billions, even hundreds of billions of dollars underfunded. The gap between what they owe and what they have is staggering. And every year that gap gets bigger because they're not earning enough on their investments to keep up with their obligations. This is a math problem that doesn't have a happy ending unless benefits get cut or taxpayers get stuck with the bill. And if you think the government is going to bail out every failing pension, you're dreaming. There's a federal agency that insures some private pensions, but it has limits. It can only pay out so much, and it's already under strain. If we hit a wave of major pension failures, which could absolutely happen in an economic downturn, that safety net is going to get overwhelmed very quickly. You cannot count on being saved. Here's what kills me about all of this. The information is out there. The warnings have been issued. Financial experts have been sounding the alarm for years about the pension crisis, but most people don't want to hear it. They don't want to face the reality that they're not prepared. They don't want to do the hard work of taking control of their finances, so they stick their heads in the sand and hope for the best. And hope is not a strategy. You want to know what a real retirement strategy looks like? It's having multiple sources of income. It's having investments that you control. It's having assets that generate cash flow. It's having a diversified portfolio that isn't dependent on the promises of a corporation or a government entity that might not be around in 20 years. That's financial security. A single pension payment is not financial security. It's financial vulnerability. Think about it this way. If you had a business and all of your revenue came from one client, what would happen if that client went away? You'd be bankrupt overnight. That's what you're doing when you rely solely on a pension. You're putting all of your retirement eggs in one basket, and that basket is being held by someone else who has no real obligation to you beyond a promise they made years ago under completely different economic conditions. I want to be very clear about something. I'm not saying pensions are worthless. I'm not saying you should turn down a pension if you have one. What I'm saying is that a pension cannot be your only plan. It cannot be the thing you're counting on to carry you through 20 or 30 years of retirement. You need more. You need to build wealth. You need to create income streams that you own and control. The good news is it's not too late. Even if you're in your 40s or 50s, even if you feel like you've wasted time, you can still take action. You can still build a financial foundation that will support you in retirement. But you have to start now. You have to get serious. You have to stop making excuses and start making moves. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. If this is making sense to you, if you're starting to see why you need to take control of your financial future, I need you to engage with this content. Hit that like button right now. Drop a comment and tell me, how much are you expecting from your pension? And do you have other income sources lined up? And please, if you haven't already, subscribe and become a member. We're building something important here, a community of people who refuse to be victims of a broken system. So now you understand the problem. You see why your pension isn't enough. You see why the system is broken. But I didn't come here just to scare you. I came here to give you solutions. I came here to tell you exactly what you need to do to protect yourself and build real wealth for retirement. So let's get into the action plan. First thing, and this is non-negotiable, you need to max out every tax-advantaged retirement account available to you. If your employer offers a 401k, you need to be contributing to it. And I don't mean contributing just enough to get the match. I mean maxing it out if you possibly can. The contribution limits are substantial, and every dollar you put in there is a dollar that's working for you, growing tax deferred, building your wealth. If you don't have access to a 401k, you need to open an IRA. A traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, whatever makes sense for your tax situation. But you need to be putting money away in accounts that give you tax advantages. This is free money from the government in the form of tax breaks, and you're a fool if you're not taking advantage of it. This should be automatic. This should be money that comes out before you even see it. Now here's where people mess up. They think just contributing to a retirement account is enough. They throw money in there and they don't pay attention to what it's invested in. They leave it sitting in some default money market fund earning nothing, or they pick random mutual funds without understanding what they're doing. That's not a strategy. That's just throwing money away. You need to understand asset allocation. You need to understand diversification. At a minimum, you should be invested in a mix of stocks and bonds appropriate for your age and risk tolerance. When you're young, you can afford to be more aggressive with stocks. As you get closer to retirement, you need to shift more toward bonds and stable income producing assets. This is basic stuff, but most people don't do it. And here's what I always tell people. Keep it simple. You don't need to be a genius investor. You don't need to pick individual stocks unless you really know what you're doing. Low-cost index funds are your friend. They give you broad market exposure, they're diversified, and the fees are minimal. Over time, they're going to outperform most actively managed funds. This is not sexy advice, but it works. But retirement accounts are just the beginning. You cannot build real wealth if all of your money is locked up in accounts you can't touch until you're 60 years old. You need to be investing outside of those accounts too. You need to be building taxable investment portfolios. You need assets that you can access if you need them, that grow over time, that generate income for you. Real estate. This is where a lot of wealthy people build their fortunes. And it's accessible to regular people too. You don't have to be a real estate mogul to benefit from property investment. You can start small. Maybe you buy a rental property. Maybe you invest in real estate investment trusts. Maybe you partner with other investors to get into bigger deals. The point is, real estate gives you income, it appreciates over time, and it's a tangible asset that you can see and touch. I love real estate because it forces diversification. You're not just in stocks and bonds, you've got property, you've got rental income, you've got appreciation potential, and if you're smart about it, you've got tax advantages too. The government actually encourages real estate investment through the tax code. You can depreciate properties, you can deduct expenses, you can defer taxes through exchanges. This is a powerful wealth building tool. But here's what I want to stress. Whatever investment strategy you pursue, you need to educate yourself. You need to understand what you're investing in. You need to know the risks. Too many people just hand their money over to some financial advisor and hope for the best. That's not good enough. You need to be involved. You need to ask questions. You need to understand where your money is going and why. Now let's talk about income streams, because this is critical. The wealthy don't rely on one source of income. They have multiple streams. They have dividend-paying stocks. They have rental income. They have business income. They have royalties, interest, capital gains. Money is flowing in from different directions. That's what creates real financial security. One stream dries up, you've got others to fall back on. So think about how you can create additional income streams. Maybe you start a side business. Maybe you create digital products or courses based on your expertise. Maybe you invest in dividend-paying stocks that send you checks every quarter. Maybe you buy vending machines or ATMs or other small cash-flowing assets. The specific vehicle doesn't matter as much as the principle. You need multiple sources of income. And here's something that's often overlooked. You need to think about your career differently. Too many people just coast in their jobs. They do the minimum to get by. They don't invest in their own skills and knowledge. But your earning power is your most valuable asset, especially when you're young. Every dollar you can add to your income is a dollar you can invest. Every skill you develop makes you more valuable and harder to replace. I see people complaining about not having enough money to invest, but they're not doing anything to increase their income. They're not asking for raises. They're not looking for better opportunities. They're not developing skills that command higher pay. That's backwards. You should be obsessed with increasing your earning power, especially in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. That's when you should be hitting your peak earning years and socking away as much as you can. Let me tell you what I did when I was building my wealth. I didn't wait for someone to take care of me. I didn't trust some company to keep their promises. I took every dollar I could and I invested it. I built businesses. I bought real estate. I created value. I took risks, calculated risks, but risks nonetheless. And because I did that, I have financial freedom now. I don't worry about money because I built a foundation that generates income whether I work or not. That's what you need to be doing. You need to be building a machine that generates wealth for you. And the earlier you start, the more powerful that machine becomes. This is the magic of compound interest. This is why starting in your 20s or 30s is so much more powerful than starting in your 50s. But even if you're starting late, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Now I want to address something that stops a lot of people. They're afraid to invest. They're afraid of losing money. They're afraid of making mistakes. And I get it. Nobody wants to lose their hard-earned money. But let me tell you something. Not investing is the biggest risk of all. Keeping your money in a savings account earning 1% while inflation is running at 3 or 4 or 5% means you're losing money every single year. You're going backwards. Yes, investing carries risk. Markets go up and down. You might lose money in the short term, but over long periods of time, good investments go up. The stock market has returned an average of about 10% a year over the last century. Real estate appreciates. Good businesses grow. If you're diversified, if you're patient, if you're not trying to get rich overnight, the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. The people who get hurt in investing are the ones who panic. They buy high when everyone is excited. They sell low when everyone is scared. They chase hot tips. They try to time the market. They make emotional decisions. Don't be that person. Have a plan, stick to the plan, and let time work its magic. Boring investing wins. Slow and steady wins. Consistent contributions over decades wins. Here's something else you need to think about. Healthcare costs. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to emphasize it because it's such a massive expense in retirement. You need a plan for how you're going to handle health care before you're eligible for Medicare. You need to understand what Medicare covers and what it doesn't. You need to budget for supplemental insurance, for prescription drugs, for long-term care potentially. Long-term care insurance is something a lot of people ignore, and it's a huge mistake. If you end up needing nursing home care or in-home care, it can cost thousands of dollars a month. It can wipe out your savings in a matter of years. Having long-term care insurance can protect you from that catastrophic expense. It's not fun to think about, but you have to think about it because if you don't plan for it, it can destroy everything you've built. Let me give you the bottom line. Your pension, if you have one, should be considered a bonus. It should be gravy on top of the wealth you've built yourself. It should not be the foundation of your retirement plan. The foundation needs to be assets you own, investments you control, income streams you've created. That's what gives you real security. That's what gives you options. That's what lets you sleep at night. And I want to say this to the younger people watching. You have the most valuable asset of all, time. You have decades to build wealth. You have decades for compound interest to work its magic. If you start investing seriously in your 20s or 30s, you can build massive wealth by the time you're ready to retire. But you have to start. You have to make it a priority. You have to pay yourself first and invest the difference. For those of you who are older, who are looking at retirement in the next 10 or 15 years, you don't have as much time, but you're not out of options. You need to get aggressive. You need to save as much as you possibly can. You might need to work a few extra years. You might need to downsize your lifestyle. You might need to make some hard choices. But it's better to make those choices now while you still can than to run out of money at 75 and have no options left. Here's what I want you to do right now, today. I want you to sit down and calculate what you're actually going to have in retirement. Add up your pension if you have one. Add up your Social Security. Add up what your investments and retirement accounts will be worth. Then compare that to what you're actually going to need. Be honest, be realistic. Don't lowball your expenses. And if there's a gap, you need to figure out how you're going to close it. This might be uncomfortable. You might not like what you see, but knowing the truth is the first step to fixing the problem. Once you know where you stand, you can make a plan. You can start taking action. You can start building the financial security you're going to need. But you can't fix a problem you're not willing to look at. I also want you to think about what you want your retirement to look like. Do you want to travel? Do you want to help your kids and grandkids? Do you want to pursue hobbies and passions? All of that costs money. You can't do any of it if you're scraping by on an inadequate pension. You need to build wealth so that retirement is a time of enjoyment and fulfillment, not stress and worry. The choice is yours. You can keep believing that someone else is going to take care of you, or you can take control of your own destiny. You can keep hoping your pension will be enough, or you can build real wealth that gives you options and security. I'm telling you, as someone who has built wealth and seen others do it, the path to financial freedom is paved with personal responsibility and smart investing. Now, here's my final challenge to you. If this video has opened your eyes, if you're ready to take action, I need you to prove it. Hit that like button right now. Go to the comments and tell me what your first step is going to be. Are you going to max out your retirement contributions? Are you going to start investing in real estate? Are you going to create a side business? Tell me your plan, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe right now, become a member of this channel. We're building a community of people who are serious about building wealth and taking control of their financial futures. I'm going to keep bringing you the hard truths, the strategies that work, and the motivation you need to stay on track. But I need you with me. Your pension isn't enough. It never was. But you have the power to change your financial future. You have the power to build wealth. You have the power to create the retirement you deserve. The question is, are you going to use that power, or are you going to keep making excuses? The clock is ticking. The time to act is now. Let's build wealth together.